Now that I look back on it, it was a good month. Hi, my name is Sarah, and I make videos about sewing and styling a handmade wardrobe. If you're new here, thank you so much for checking out my channel, and if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. Today, I'm going to be ranking my September makes from my least favorite to my most favorite, and I'm also going to be sharing with you the repairs and alterations that I did in September. I filmed these segments throughout different times of the month, and there will be chapters so that you can skip around to just the parts that you're interested in. Now let's start out with repairs and alterations because I did have quite a few that I completed in the month of September. Starting off with my I Am Patterns Amy top, you will have seen this top a lot recently. I just made it the previous month back in August. I had put a pocket on the left-hand side and I didn't like the way that looked, so I removed it. But when I took the pocket off, there was a little bit of a thin spot on the fabric and I felt like I needed to go in and reinforce that so that it wouldn't become a hole over time. So I did just a little bit of satin stitching over the hole. And I mean, I'm not saying that it's like the most elegant, wonderful, invisible repair, but I don't think that it's that noticeable when you wear it. And I'm confident now that it's not going to develop a hole, which was really the important part. So this was a relatively quick and easy fix, and I'm much happier now without the pocket on the shirt. The next item is my Closet Core ginger jeans in the white denim. So I washed these, and when I pulled them out of the wash, the button popped off. So this was literally like a 2-minute fix once it was dry. I just went ahead and found a new button in my stash and put a new button on. And because you hammer it on, I didn't have to do any sewing or anything. Originally, this was a gold button and I didn't have any of those left. So I just used this other one for my stash, but no one's going to notice. No one's going to look at the button. So that was a very quick and easy repair, and hopefully the new button will stay on for a good long time. This next item is my Simplicity 9239 denim jacket. I used this in my 10 by 10 capsule wardrobe, and I noticed when I was wearing it, just one thing that's always annoyed me about it is that the back facing would always kind of flare out and flip up, and it was just really irritating. So one thing that I had started to do with my makes probably about a year ago is that I will often just go ahead and top stitch down the back facing with a matching thread. Because it's in the back, I feel like you don't even really notice it. And it goes a long way towards making it a lot easier to wear and making it a lot less annoying when that facing isn't flipping around. So I went ahead and just used a navy thread and stitched down the facing so that it won't move anymore. And I think this is going to be a lot less annoying. And actually, I should probably go through my closet and find other jackets and shirts like this and do the same thing because it just makes a huge difference in the ease of wearing, in my opinion. This next one is McCall's 7831. I had worn this several months ago, earlier in the summer, during like a what I wore in a week video. And I had mentioned in that video how this bib was just too wide and it was gaping, and I really didn't like that. And a lot of you had suggested that I just need to lengthen the straps so that the bib sits lower and then it won't do that bunching in the center anymore. So I took your advice, but the only issue with lengthening the straps is that I had stitched them down so they basically were not adjustable anymore. So I went in and I unpicked that stitching so that I could adjust the straps. I did go ahead and lengthen them a little bit, and I wore it the other day and it is definitely better than it was. So thank you so much to those of you who gave me that suggestion. It really did make a big difference. And now I can wear this dress again and feel more confident in it. It was also a very, very quick and easy thing to do. This next item is a pair of Abercrombie ready-to-wear jeans. I bought these a couple of years ago, and these jeans were always a little bit too long for me, but I justified keeping them long because I said to myself, it's good to have one pair of jeans that are long enough that I can wear with heels. Well, the issue with that is that I very rarely wear heels, and today in autumn of 2024, I pretty much never wear heels. I'm having some issues with my feet, so I have stopped wearing heels for the time being until I can get them sorted out. So I really, really don't foresee a future in which I wear heels very often at all, if ever. So it was time to go ahead and hem these pants so that they're not dragging on the ground anymore, or I don't have to wear them cuffed. So I went ahead and hemmed them 2 inches, and I kept the original hem. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but it's not very visible like when you're actually wearing them. But it just looks a little bit more natural having that original hem rather than redoing the hem myself and then trying to match threads, etc. So I've hemmed a lot of pants in my life because I'm short and I always have to hem my pants. So this was not a big deal. It was not very time consuming, but I'm really glad that I took the time to do it because I do think that these jeans will get a lot more wear now that they're a little bit shorter. Now this final repair I'm a little bit exasperated with, if I'm going to be honest. This is the Maison Fauve pom-pom vest. I made it earlier in the spring and I really love it and I've worn it a lot. I had already repaired the lining once because it had come apart in the wash and I hand stitched it back together. Long story short, at least for the time being, I need to change the way that I've been doing laundry. Like traditionally, I would wash all of my clothes in cold water and lay them flat to dry. I've had to stop doing that. I had to start washing my clothes in hotter temperatures and drying them in the dryer. So when I washed this vest, the lining came apart again. So I had to go in for a second time and hand stitch the holes that had appeared in the lining. I went back and looked at the instructions for this vest because I was wondering if maybe I had not followed the instructions correctly, because I have been known to do that. But no, it's not me, it is the pattern. When you sew the darts on this vest, they tell you to cut the seam all the way up to the tip of the dart and then press it open. I have made some other things since then that have that same style of dart. And all of the other instructions that I've encountered with this similar sort of thing is that they tell you to cut the dart up to about an inch from the tip. So you don't go all the way up to the tip. You press it open up to where you stopped cutting, and then you just press the tip of the dart flat. And then that way you don't have to worry about fraying, because if you think about cutting a dart all the way to the tip, at the very top, that seam allowance is really, really narrow. And with this kind of fluid rayon fabric, it's really prone to fraying. So that's what happened with this vest and why it keeps coming apart. I think that I need to just make peace with the fact that this vest may not last me very long, because I think that it's going to continue to fray in the wash. I probably do not have enough energy to actually go in and replace the entire lining and redo the whole thing. Once it's beyond repair, I'm probably just going to retire this one and maybe I can remake it again in the future. It is a shame because, like I said, I have gotten a lot of wear out of this vest and I really like it. But yeah, all that to say that if you do make this pom-pom pattern, do not do what the instructions say. If you're using a lining fabric that's prone to fraying at all, or even your outer fabric also, don't cut the darts all the way up to the top. It's just a recipe for disaster. So those were all of my repairs this month. I'm really pleased actually that I got so many things done and ready to go back in my closet. And now I'm going to send you to the makes. The vest that I'm wearing is Butterick 6901. I made view A in a size 6 and it took me about 9 days from start to finish. I did make a fit muslin using this Brussels washer linen that was left over in my stash. On this particular version, I made the size 6, but I did grade up to a size 10 on the back here. There are only 4 pattern pieces for this vest, so it was super easy and quick to put together. After I sewed up this muslin and tried it on, I thought that the fit was pretty much perfect, except that I had graded up a little bit too much. There was a little bit of extra space in the back. So for the final version, I graded up from a size 6 to a size 8 at the upper back only. And I also went ahead and scooped a 1/4 inch at the underarm because I just felt like the armholes were a little bit too high. For the final version that I'm wearing, I used a white cotton canvas that was left over from making a pleated skirt. This fabric was sponsored by Minerva, and then for the interior lining, I used a leftover piece of Bemberg rayon that was in my stash. So this was a really good scrap buster, and I absolutely would put this on my list of things to sew again because it doesn't take a lot of fabric, so I think that it is a really good use of using up those leftover pieces or remnants that you end up with in your stash. Now overall, this vest is really easy to construct, but just keep in mind that there is a lot of understitching. So if understitching is something that you do not like doing, then perhaps this would not be the right pattern for you. The pattern actually calls for you to interface the entire front pieces, but because this cotton canvas that I use is a little bit thicker, I skipped it. But I didn't take into account that I do need interfacing for the button band here. So initially when I made the vest and realized that I had forgotten to interface the button bands, I was a little bit mad at myself that I hadn't thought of that. So if you're like me and you have a thicker outer fabric that you want to use that doesn't need to be completely interfaced, just remember that you do need to add a strip of interfacing for the buttons and the buttonholes. Now before I got to the stage of putting in the buttonholes, I tried on the vest and unfortunately it was too snug. One thing that I didn't account for when I made this particular muslin is that I didn't line the muslin, and I always forget that when you put a lining into a garment, it does make the garment a little bit smaller because the lining takes up a little bit of space. So it was perfect in this version, but in the final version with the lining, it was too snug. So I decided to fix all of my problems in one go. I went ahead and reopened the side seams where I had closed the lining by hand, turned it inside out, put some interfacing on these button bands so that would be nice and stable. And actually, it was a really good thing that I took the time to do that, because when I turned the vest inside out, a pin fell out. A pin was inside of my vest, sandwiched between the lining and the outer shell. I didn't realize it, and so I could have been wearing this vest and then gotten poked because I didn't know that the pin was there. So this probably is not an issue for most of you, but if you happen to be an idiot like me, just make sure that you don't have anything sharp that can poke you inside your vest before you sew it up and complete it. Once I did remove the pin and I was going to stitch up the side seams again, I used Wonder Clips instead of pins because those are a lot harder to lose. Now, the way that I ended up fixing the sizing was that I just took a smaller seam allowance on the side seams. I did 3/8 of an inch on both side seams instead of 5/8 of an inch, and that added just enough space that it fits pretty perfectly now. The next time that I sew this vest, I will go ahead and modify the pattern so that that's not an issue in the future. I really like the way that this turned out, and I would say that the fit is very nearly perfect. I do still feel like the armholes are just a little bit too high, so I think I would scoop them maybe another 1/4 of an inch the next time that I make it. And I also think that the dart points end just a little bit too high, so I'd probably shift those down maybe just 1/2 an inch. And the last potential change that I would make is that there are ties in the back that you can use to cinch in the back waist, but functionally they don't really do much for me and they kind of get in the way, honestly. So I think that if I made it again, I might just eliminate the back ties because I don't think that they're really necessary on this particular vest. So thankfully, even though it wasn't perfect on my first attempt, it was relatively simple to change and I was able to get a vest that I'm really happy with. I do think that I will wear this a lot because the other vest that I made back in the summer, I've worn that with so many different things. There's a lot of ways that you can style a vest. It's a really versatile piece to have in your closet. So I'm looking forward to wearing this in a lot of different ways. And like I said, I definitely think I'm going to put this back on my pattern list to make again in the future. This make is the Fibre Mood Betty trouser. I sewed it in 8 days from start to finish out of some Mind the Maker denim that I bought from Minerva a couple of years ago, I think. I've sewed these pants once before, but I no longer have them in my wardrobe because they were a little bit too small. So in my first attempt, I had made the size 2, so I went ahead and reprinted and taped together the pattern again in a size 4. And I did have to make some adjustments to get the pants to fit me. I shortened the legs 2 inches. And then I had to shorten the front rise just a little bit and the back rise pretty significantly. And then I also added a little bit at the inner thigh crotch extension to make more room for my thighs. I really enjoyed sewing these jeans. I think that this denim is around a 10-ounce denim, so it's kind of on the medium side. And it's already pretty soft, but when I was sewing it, I distressed these seam lines with sandpaper. And then I also added some extra distressing in the wear areas of the jeans, and that just made it even more soft. And I'm really happy with how that turned out. I actually think that maybe I could have done it a little bit more, but I'm pleased with the finished results as is. I used a white top stitching thread, and so for this pair of jeans, I have another pair of pants, the Lander jeans, that look very similar to this because the denim is a really similar color. They're actually not the same fabrics. The other pair of pants is a Minerva denim, whereas this is a Mind the Maker denim. But when I got them in the mail, I didn't realize that they were so close to being the same color. So I was extra careful with this pair to make them look different than my Lander jeans. That's why I used white top stitching instead of gold and why I did the extra distressing. I'm really pleased with how this pair came out. They fit very comfortably. They're not tight or constricting at all. And that barrel leg means that they're looser in the legs, so they're just a lot more comfortable to wear. I did notice in the photos in the video that it still looks like I have a bit of a back wedgie. I'm not quite sure what that's about, if it's like really a fit issue or not, because although visually it doesn't look that good, it doesn't feel uncomfortable. So it's possible that when I shortened the back rise, maybe I did it a little bit too much. I'm not sure. But just based on the fact that I don't notice it when I'm wearing it, I'm not going to worry about it that much. I really don't know why I was surprised by how much I like these pants. I really liked my first pair when I made them out of corduroy. So I'm actually really excited with all the different ways that I can style these pants. I do think that I'm going to do a separate styling video with different outfits with this. Let me know in the comments if that is something that you would like to see, because I'm just really excited about these jeans and the possibilities and all the different ways that I could wear them for fall and winter. So if you're interested in seeing that too, make sure to let me know. This cardigan is called Jacket Number 2, and it was designed by My Favorite Things Knitwear. This took me just under a month to knit. I knit it out of a worsted weight wool called Baracco Ultra Wool. I used 5 skeins, and I used size 8 needles for the body and then 6 for the bands and the ribbing. I knit the smallest size, but my gauge was a little bit tighter than the pattern called for, so my cardigan is a little bit smaller and more fitted, but that's actually the way that I prefer my cardigans to fit. I also shortened the body length slightly so it would be more cropped on me, and I definitely shortened the sleeves significantly so that they would fit my short T-Rex arms. Now, in my opinion, this was not the most logically written pattern in the world. I do think that there might have been 1 or 2 errors, but for the most part, the pattern was correct, but maybe not written in a way that I thought was very easy to follow. So for that reason, I don't know that I would recommend this sweater to a beginner. But for me, it was a little bit annoying, but I managed to follow it just fine and I got good results. I did make one mistake, and this was totally my own fault. This sweater has an attached button band that's knit vertically with the sweater, and they tell you where to place the buttonholes. And I ended up placing my top buttonhole a little bit too high up, like it was way high up on the neck, and that was going to look really weird. But because it takes an absolute eternity to knit this button band, I did not want to rip it back. So instead of having 4 buttons on my cardigan, I only have 3, and then I closed up the final buttonhole. Hopefully it's not that noticeable when I'm not pointing it out to you. But having the 3 buttons I think works just fine. There's no like gaping or anything. This style of cardigan, with it being a relaxed fit with the cables and the V-neck and the cropped length, it is so quintessentially me. I absolutely love it. I honestly can't say if I've ever knit the same sweater pattern more than once. If I have, it's been an extremely rare thing. But for this one, I think I would make an exception. Like, I would knit another version of this because I just love it so much. And I think it looks really beautiful. It has all these tubular bind off edges, so it looks very, very clean and polished. And of course, I absolutely love it in the white. I love white sweaters in the wintertime, but I could definitely see myself making another color, maybe something a little bit brighter and more fun. And this only ended up taking me about 5 skeins of yarn. I can't remember if I already said that. So overall, it actually was not a super expensive project for a sweater, which was nice for a change. So I don't know if I'm going to do it this year, but I will definitely put this pattern back on my list to re-knit at some point in the future. And in the meantime, I'm just going to enjoy this one because I think it's so beautiful. I love the texture. It's going to go with absolutely everything. The only real concern I have is just trying to keep it clean, but that's life, you know, and I'm willing to take that risk. So this one is definitely a 10 out of 10, 2 thumbs up winner in my book. This is the Pattern Scout Cozi Jacket. I made it in 14 days from start to finish out of a stretch twill that I bought from Mood Fabrics. I made a size 2 and I graded up to a size 4 just on the upper back and the upper back sleeve in order to account for my broad back. And I did shorten the sleeves initially by about 2.5 inches. This version is actually the expansion pack. It comes with a different kind of collar and pocket details. On the original, the pockets are up on the chest, but I moved them down to the hip here so that they could actually be functional pockets for me. I did use the same placement for the pockets that's in the original pattern. I just used a different kind of pocket. And I don't think that it looks strange or anything. I think it looks pretty normal. Just having chest pockets is not functional at all for me, and I need to be able to have some place to put my keys, so that's why I moved the pocket location. This jacket is really easy and simple to put together. There's no yoke, there's no pleats, there's no kind of special cuff treatment or anything at the sleeves, they're just hemmed. You do have the option to cinch it in with elastic at the hem and at the sleeve, but I didn't end up doing that. It is quite a boxy style, and that's how it's intended to be. I wasn't sure initially if I was going to like it, but after I finished it and I took photographs, I do really like the way that this fits. It's very comfortable, it's pretty oversized, so it's going to be nice and easy to layer over long sleeve things and maybe even thin sweaters. I think it's really the perfect jacket for fall. Now, I did play a little bit fast and loose with the instructions. It was a little bit of a pain going back and forth because I had the expansion pack version. I was constantly having to go back and forth between the original instructions and the expansion instructions. And eventually I kind of just gave up and did my own thing. So some of the construction techniques were done a little bit differently than what it said in the pattern. One major hiccup that I ran into right away is that I didn't actually have enough fabric to cut out this jacket. Now, I'm guilty of this all the time. Because I'm short and I usually have to shorten pattern pieces, I generally end up using less fabric than whatever the pattern calls for. So I have a tendency to just ignore whatever the fabric requirements say and just assume that I have enough fabric. I'm pretty sure I had 2.5 yards of this particular fabric, but I did not account for the fact that it's pretty narrow. It's not 44 inches wide, but it's also not like your standard like 55 inches wide. It was somewhere in between there. So like an idiot, I ironed my fabric and folded it, and then I put the front pattern piece down and I cut it out. And then I realized that because my fabric was narrow, I didn't have enough yardage to actually lay out all of the other pieces. So it took some pattern Tetrising and a little bit of finessing to figure out what I was going to do to make it work. What I ended up doing was that the under collar is supposed to be cut on the bias, but this is a stretch twill and it has a lot of stretch in it. So I figured I didn't really need the under collar to be on the bias. It was going to be plenty stretchy on its own. So I cut that on the straight grain and that saved a little bit of fabric. And then the other thing that I did was I ended up shortening the sleeves. These sleeves are supposed to have a really deep hem. I think that it's supposed to be the same depth as this hem and it's that wide so that you can put elastic in it if you want to. But I just didn't have enough fabric to cut out the back piece and the sleeves. So I ended up making the sleeve hems a lot narrower, and that was how I was able to save it and end up cutting out all of my pieces. After that, it was pretty smooth sailing. Like I said, it's a pretty easy, simple jacket to construct. And now that I've made this one version, I could totally see myself making it again. There's a lot of different variations in this pattern, like you can do a zippered front, you can do a hood. There's a different style of pockets that are more like angled patch pockets, and I really like the look of that as well. You can do it in knits or in wovens. It's a nice versatile pattern, so I definitely think that I will go back to this in the future. And I also really like the idea that you can put in the elastic to cinch it up because that would make it more of like a bomber style jacket. So I'm really pleased with how this one turned out, and I think that it's going to get a lot of wear in the fall because of the color and the boxiness and the style. I think that it will match really well with a lot of different outfits. For this particular outfit, the way that I styled it was very simple. I just went with a black t-shirt and a long black skirt. This skirt, I usually only wear it in the summer, but I decided to keep it out for my fall wardrobe because full skirts are very in right now. And because this is black, I thought, why not maximize my use out of it and get a few more wears before I put it away for the winter. So just having that monochromatic black with the green on top, in my opinion, I think that it looks really elegant and classy, simple but sophisticated, and that was the look I was going for. So this jacket is definitely a winner in my book, and I can't wait to make another version. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I really had a hard time deciding which of the 4 was my favorite and ranking them because I really did like all of them. Let me know in the comments which make was your favorite. I would love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you would give me a thumbs up because it helps more people find my channel. And thank you so much for watching.